I was ordered to study this planet because someone in the High Council believed it held secrets. I believed otherwise. Earth, as its inhabitants proudly call it, is a globe of contradictions. Oceans fouled by their own machines, cities choked in fumes from engines that still burn liquid fuel, and a culture that worships glowing rectangles while devouring images of cats. This is not a cradle of progress, but a museum of stagnation. My assignment, therefore, was beneath me. Commander Xylox, decorated strategist of the 7th Fleet, reduced to cataloging the habits of a species that communicates its emotions with tiny yellow caricatures. High Command promised that humanity warranted observation. I considered the mission an insult. From orbit, the planet looked innocent enough. Clouds curled across blue seas. Continents gleamed in sunlight. Yet each signal we intercepted revealed absurdity. They broadcast their arguments for all to hear, their humor reduced to crude noises, their politics to tantrums. Even their entertainment was baffling. Competitions where mortals scream at each other while preparing food, and the winner receives approval from other screamers. I logged these findings with a sneer. If Earth was the Empire's future adversary, then the Empire had already won. Nevertheless, procedure demanded a specimen. The target had to be isolated, unarmed, and easily removed without alerting the herd. We scanned the surface until we found him, a man in his middle years, camping beside a river deep in the northern forests. He had pitched a flimsy triangle of cloth called a tent, tended a small fire, and skewered puffs of sugar foam on a stick. The choice was convenient. Alone, distracted, and unremarkable, he represented exactly what I wished to prove. Humanity was docile. We descended unseen. The ship cloaked more for ceremony than necessity. He never noticed. The man's attention remained fixed on the slow collapse of sugar into flame. Around him lay crude belongings, a patched rucksack, a cracked pot sealed with strips of adhesive cloth, and a small device that emitted distorted songs about heartbreak. I remember scoffing when I saw the adhesive. Duct tape, my scientist Yelf explained with disdain, is the human solution to every problem. I laughed. If sticky fabric was their universal tool, they were not dangerous. They were laughable. The immobilization field worked at once. He slumped without struggle, marshmallow falling into the fire. My soldiers carried him aboard while I observed with detached satisfaction. Inside the containment chamber, he appeared fragile, skin pale, muscles ordinary. He wore rugged garments, but nothing resembling armor. His breathing was steady, untroubled. We had captured lesser creatures with more resistance. My soldiers celebrated the ease of success, one remarking that this man was so subdued he might as well be livestock. I agreed. We began preliminary scans. Bone density proved average, musculature serviceable, reflex potential unimpressive. His brain volume fell within expectation, smaller in proportion than that of our archivists, hardly the mark of brilliance. His belongings told a similar story. Simple tools, nothing advanced, all patched or repaired. I documented these findings with relish. The report would write itself. A primitive, unthreatening organism, representative of a planet unworthy of conquest. To amuse ourselves, we spoke of human culture. Yelf mocked their obsession with cats. Thousands of images across their networks, as though these animals were gods. Another soldier jeered at their diet of ground flesh between bread, soaked in condiments of questionable chemistry. I added that such fare explained their sluggish thought and short lifespans. We concluded that Earth was best left as a curiosity, a reminder of how slowly evolution could crawl. And yet I lingered by the chamber glass longer than necessary. He lay motionless, eyes closed, body still under paralysis, but something unsettled me. Perhaps it was the faint twitch of his hand, perhaps the subtle curve of his lips. I told myself it was nerve noise, an illusion. The field readings confirmed immobility. Still, I could not rid myself of the impression that his stillness was deliberate rather than imposed. I attempted to shake the thought by reviewing mission objectives. High Command required thorough study before final judgment. I considered this wasteful, but accepted the burden. We would test his endurance, expose him to toxins, analyze his mental capacity, and then dispose of him. That was the plan. That was the routine. Hours passed, and he remained unchanged. My soldiers grew restless, wagering how long he would survive our examinations. Yelth suggested mild electrical stimulation to test neural resilience. I waved the idea aside for later. I preferred patience. Specimens reveal themselves in time. I recorded my preliminary report. Subject acquired. Displays no unusual characteristics. Primitive in all measurable respects. Recommend expedited study. I nearly transmitted it to the fleet then and there. So confident was I in its truth. Before sealing the log, I glanced back once more. His head shifted, almost imperceptibly, and though every reading insisted he remained paralyzed, I saw it. More than that, I saw the unmistakable shadow of a smile. It was not the twitch of nerves. It was intention. I stayed by the chamber longer than I intended, studying that expression. The soldiers noticed nothing, continuing their chatter about human absurdities. They had already moved on in their minds to the next mission, but I could not. The smile was too precise, too knowing. For the first time since I had set foot on this backwater planet, I wondered if the Council had been right to send me. I forced myself to leave, mocking my own imagination. Confidence is the doctrine of the Empire. Doubt is weakness. I told myself I had seen nothing. Yet as the door sealed behind me, the image lingered, a fragile creature, subdued by our power, smiling as though he knew something I did not. The paralysis field should have held him until we were ready. And yet, as I returned to the chamber for the morning observations, I found his eyes open, not wide with terror, as most primitives when captured, but calm, unervingly steady. He blinked twice, adjusted his gaze toward me, and spoke with a voice far too casual for a man who should not be conscious. "Nice ride you got here." His words carried none of the panic I anticipated, only a faint amusement, as if we were two travelers sharing small talk at a terminal. For a moment, I wondered if my translator had malfunctioned. My soldiers froze, stunned. One dropped his scanner. Another reached instinctively for his weapon, though protocol forbade it inside the containment deck. Yelth sputtered, demanding to know how the paralysis had failed. I silenced them all with a raised hand. This human was awake too soon. That much was true, but a smile and a misplaced joke did not make him dangerous. At least, that is what I told myself. The man sat up, slowly, deliberately. His movements were measured, not frantic. "You're the scientist," he said, gesturing toward Yelth. His finger moved to the armored guard. "Soldier." Finally, he turned his gaze to me, a look that lingered too long, a smirk tugging at his lips. "And you're the one pretending to be in charge." The chamber filled with uneasy silence. My soldiers shifted, uncertain whether to laugh at the absurdity or recoil from the accuracy. I forced a chuckle, sharp and dismissive. "Congratulations, human. You can play guessing games. Perhaps next you'll point out that water is wet." He ignored my mockery. Instead, he studied the walls, the ceiling, the floor, every corner of the chamber with unsettling focus. "Nice layout," he muttered. "Compact, efficient. Your containment field hums at 60 kilohertz. Maybe a little low if you want to keep someone truly locked in." His words prickled across me like static. How could he know? The frequency was not visible, not audible, certainly not perceptible to human senses. I declared it coincidence. Humans guess at many things, often loudly and incorrectly. I would not grant him the satisfaction of concern, yet unease settled in my chest. When I asked how he felt, he smiled again, like I just took the red pill. I glanced at Yelth, who shrugged. Our database flagged the reference as cultural nonsense, another fragment of their endless moving image stories. The man leaned back against the wall, as if he were at home, as if we were the guests. Later, when I checked the logs, I found no record of him regaining mobility. Our instruments insisted he remained in stasis even as he stood before us. That contradiction gnawed at me. Either our technology failed, or he existed outside our expectations. Both were unacceptable. During questioning, he remained composed, answering in ways that unsettled more than informed. When asked his name, he gave several, each attached to a different anecdote. One involved a card game in Las Vegas, another a fishing trip in Alaska. He seemed amused by our growing frustration. Finally, he said, "Names are for introductions. You'll figure out who I'm soon enough." I instructed Yelth to resume scans. The man obliged, reclining willingly in the diagnostic chair, wires pressed against his temples. Most subjects thrash, resist, cry out. He sat still, humming faintly to himself, tapping fingers in rhythm against the metal. When the scans began, he turned his head toward one of the hidden cameras, directly at it, as if he knew its position. "You might want to recalibrate that lens," he said. Little smudge on the lower corner. My soldiers exchanged nervous glances. No one outside the design council should know the surveillance layout. I snapped at them to remain focused, but my own composure began to fray. Perhaps he had noticed a reflection, I reasoned. Perhaps the human possessed sharper senses than expected. But the explanation sounded hollow even to me. The scan results troubled Yelth. Brain activity spiked beyond recorded baselines. Not the dull patterns we anticipated, but complex, shifting bursts that our systems struggled to interpret. "Commander, his neural responses are irregular," Yelth reported. "Adaptive, elastic, as if he is anticipating the scan itself." I dismissed it publicly, though I could not banish the chill creeping down my spine. The human open one, I during the procedure. "So, what's the verdict? Smarter than the average bear?" The words again meant nothing to us, but the smirk carried enough menace. He seemed to know that we were the ones on trial. I attempted to assert control through interrogation. "You are a primitive creature on a table in an empire's laboratory. Your compliance is irrelevant. Tell us your occupation." He folded his arms. "Ex-military. These days, I test security systems for companies that don't like being hacked. You could say I look for weaknesses." He let the words hang, deliberate, savoring the weight. My soldiers shifted uncomfortably. I told them not to react, though my pulse thudded faster. He added, almost casually, "By the way, I was awake the whole trip up here. Nice corridors you've got. I especially like the way your bulkheads seal. You should really fix the leak in Junction 14, though. Smelled like ozone." I stiffened. There was no possible way he should have known of that maintenance flaw. Only last cycle had an engineer filed a report on it. My mouth formed words of denial, but they sounded brittle. "You are lying. You could not have observed our systems." He smiled again, faint, deliberate, the kind of smile that suggests a secret you will never share. "Maybe, or maybe I just pay attention." Then, after a long silence, he spoke a sentence that pressed the air out of the chamber. "I've already sent a message." Every console flickered at once. The lights dimmed. My soldiers leapt to their stations, shouting about unauthorized signals, interference across the spectrum. I barked commands, demanded system checks, ordered lockdown protocols. But the human simply leaned back in the chair, unbothered, watching us scramble like ants disturbed from a nest. I wanted to strike him, to reassert order through fear, but something in his gaze halted me. Not defiance, not arrogance, but certainty. The kind of certainty reserved for those who know they are exactly where they plan to be. Yeltha's voice cracked as he read the data. "Commander, he's right. A signal left the ship. Origin point is here." The human nodded, calm as ever. "Told you, my arrogance should have carried me through." Yet in that moment, I felt something new, something unfamiliar, something that had no place in the doctrine of the Empire. Fear. The diagnostic chair hummed as the scanners drew arcs of light across the human skull. But the subject appeared almost bored, tapping his fingers against the armrest as though he were keeping time with a private song. My scientist Yelth adjusted dials, muttering in confusion as the readings twisted into shapes we could not properly interpret. The brain waves did not flow in predictable currents. They leapt, tangled, adjusted in real time, as if his mind were anticipating the intrusion and moving out of reach. "Commander," Yelth whispered, "the pattern is recursive. It reacts to us faster than the scan can stabilize." His voice shook, and I felt my throat tighten in irritation. Machines do not falter, subjects falter. Yet here the machine trembled while the subject remained steady. The man opened one eye and smirked. What's the prognosis? Too much television. His sarcasm stung in its simplicity. He had clearly deciphered our intentions, yet he mocked them with the ease of a comedian at a bar. I struggled to maintain composure. You joke because you are afraid, I said coldly. Our knowledge is beyond you. He tilted his head, unbothered. Or maybe I joke because you're predictable. Everyone's got a script. Scientist frowns, commander scolds, soldier glares. You're all hitting your marks perfectly. I wanted to dismiss his words as coincidence, but his calm unnerved me. He had observed us closely, far more than I believed possible. Our training emphasized that humans relied on instinct, not calculation. Yet this one dissected us like a surgeon with a patient. My soldier core bristled and stepped closer, weapon half raised. The man did not flinch. Instead, he looked at Core's weapon with a faint smile. Old model. Energy dispersion angles a little wide. Probably overheats if you fire too long. Core cursed and looked to me for permission to silence him. I shook my head. Not yet. Yelf gestured for my attention. The scans revealed anomalies unlike anything recorded. Neural pathways lit like a constellation, branching and rebounding in unpredictable sequences. Commander, this is beyond standard variance. His cognitive adaptability, it's extraordinary. I leaned over the console, unwilling to admit the chill that spread through me. Extraordinary? He is a human. His greatest tool is duct tape. Yelf shook his head, eyes wide. This is not duct tape. This is weaponized thought. The human chuckled softly. That's flattering. You're not wrong. He leaned forward, resting his wrists on his knees. I used to be military. Did some tours in places you've never heard of. These days I get paid to find holes in security systems. You'd be surprised what you can break if you're patient. His words landed like slow, deliberate strikes. My team exchanged glances, their confidence draining. I felt my arrogance fray, thread by thread. I demanded he explain his meaning. He only smiled. Let's just say your ship has a lot in common with a locked door. The lock looks fancy, but the hinges are flimsy. Yelf blanched, muttering that he couldn't possibly know the design flaws. I barked at him to continue scanning, to prove this was bluff and bravado. But even as I spoke, the chamber lights dimmed, flickered, steadied again. My stomach sank. Coincidence, I told myself. Just a fluctuation. But his eyes gleamed as if he had orchestrated the moment. I tried another tactic. You will tell us who you contacted with your so-called signal. Do you expect us to believe Earth has the means to respond? He leaned back, folding his arms. I don't expect you to believe anything. I expect you to keep underestimating us. It makes my job easier. He paused, then added, almost kindly, besides, you don't think we'd broadcast everything we've built, do you? Sometimes it helps to let the galaxy think we're dumb. My soldiers muttered nervously. I snapped at them for silence, but I could feel the shift. The human was no longer subject but interrogator. He asked us questions between our own, casual as a dinner guest. So who's running your AI core? Is it distributed, or are you still keeping it centralized? Centralized systems are such a liability. When no one answered, he shrugged. Just curious? Don't worry. I've already mapped most of it. The room chilled, though the temperature remained constant. I demanded to know what he meant. He tilted his head as if surprised I had not pieced it together. Your scanners work both ways. While you were busy probing me, I was busy listening. Fascinating stuff. How you partition memory, how your security layers overlap. Sloppy, but functional. Yeltha's hands trembled over the console. Commander, he could not. His words cut off as the reading spiked, the entire display flooding with patterns too fast to analyze. The system whined, then crashed to black. The human chuckled. Oops, did I break it? I wanted to scream. Instead, I clenched my mandibles, forcing calm. Enough. You're flesh and blood. You cannot outwit the Empire's systems. He regarded me with that infuriating calm, then spoke in a voice low, deliberate, every syllable sharpened. You don't get it. I don't need to outwit your systems. I just need to remind you that you're not the only ones watching. The chamber pulsed with silence, broken only by the faint hum of failing machines. My soldiers shifted, glancing between each other, waiting for orders I could not form. For the first time, the burden of command felt heavy, suffocating. Then the human added the sentence that carved through every defense I clung to. I've already sent the coordinates to my people, and you've got about 8 hours before they answer. The words hung in the air, vast and undeniable. He did not raise his voice, did not lean forward with menace. He simply spoke truth, or what sounded enough like truth to shatter certainty. I wanted to call it bluff, but my mind betrayed me with a single poisonous thought. What if Earth had hidden strength? What if the idiocy, the reality television, the endless memes and microwave burritos were camouflage, a costume to lull empires like mine into arrogance? The human leaned back, crossing his ankles with casual ease. "Relax," he said. "You'll see soon enough." My throat tightened. I could no longer tell who was the predator and who was the prey. And when the lights flickered again, I did not laugh. The power failed with a sound like a dying breath. Lights stuttered, consoles blinked to darkness. And for the first time in my career, the ship felt mortal. My soldiers scrambled to their stations, each shouting over the other, but no command I gave restored order. The human remained seated in the diagnostic chair, legs crossed, posture relaxed, as if we were all trapped inside his living room. "Reverse mapping," he said quietly, as though speaking to himself. "Beautifully inefficient. Thanks for the free blueprint." His calm voice contrasted so sharply with the chaos that I felt my own arrogance bleed away like oxygen from a breach. Yelth clawed at the console, trying to restart the scanners. "Commander, the AI is not responding to us. It is listening to him." His voice cracked with disbelief. The idea that a primitive could bend our core intelligence was absurd, yet the evidence hummed in the dead screens and unresponsive controls. I barked for a manual override, but even the failsafes denied my command. Doors sealed on their own, locking crew into compartments. Our own ship, built as an extension of Empire will, now treated us as unwelcome guests. The human uncrossed his legs and leaned forward. "You might want to stay calm. Panic clouds judgment, and you're going to need every ounce of judgment you've got left." Core, the soldier, finally snapped, raising his weapon. "Commander, permission to," but the human raised a single finger and the weapon discharged without firing, overheating instantly, hissing smoke. Core dropped it with a curse. The man smiled faintly. "Told you it overheats." He stood then, and though unarmed, his presence filled the chamber more completely than my soldiers in full armor. "You thought Earth was primitive. That's fair. We'll let you think that. Keeps the tourists away. But here's the truth. We've been listening too. We've seen your signals for decades, cataloged your ship designs, learned your habits. You can cloak all you want, but you can't hide curiosity. Curiosity leaves fingerprints." My mandibles clicked in protest. "Impossible. Earth has no interstellar reach, no." He cut me off with a single look, quiet but commanding. "You really believe everything we put on the surface? You think we'd broadcast our best work? Sometimes playing dumb is the smartest thing you can do. Ask any poker player." I had no idea what a poker player was, but the menace in his tone required no translation. Systems across the ship buckled one by one. Life support shifted into lockdown cycles, corridors sealed, and my crew's frantic reports filled the comms with static and fear. I felt the walls of command closing in. For centuries, I had believed fear belonged only to those we conquered. Now it belonged to me. The human picked up the roll of duct tape from the table, turning it in his hands as though it were a sacred relic. He grinned at our confusion. "Funny thing about this stuff, it can fix anything. Even your ship, if I felt like it. But I don't." He set it down with deliberate care. That simple gesture terrified me more than any weapon could. I tried again to salvage authority. "The Empire will not tolerate this. Reinforcements will arrive. You will be annihilated before your kind can even—" He interrupted with a shrug. "Maybe. Or maybe they'll learn what you just learned. Earth's been watching, hiding defenses where you never thought to look. Cloaked satellites, deep space monitors, treaty networks you'd never pick up because you assumed we were too busy with cat videos. We've been underestimated our whole lives. We got good at it. Kor muttered a curse under his breath. Yelf sat pale and trembling. I realized then that control had passed entirely out of my grasp. The human paced slowly, deliberately, each step claiming the chamber. He was no longer a prisoner. He was the architect of our captivity. Here's the thing about ghosts, he said, pausing by the viewport where stars glittered against void. They don't show up when you expect. They arrive when the timing matters most. He turned, eyes meeting mine with chilling certainty. And Earth has plenty of ghosts. Alarms shrieked as exterior sensors detected approaching signals. Not Empire reinforcements, something else. Dozens, then hundreds of cloaked signatures blooming into clarity. For years we had scanned Earth's orbit and found nothing. Now, as if conjured from shadow, the monitors revealed them. Satellites armed, vessels hidden in gravitational blind spots, machines older than our first contact with this world. My stomach lurched. Either Earth had concealed them flawlessly, or worse, allowed us to believe they did not exist. The human watched the displays flicker to life, calm as a priest observing ritual. "You didn't find us," he murmured. "We let you." I staggered, my arrogance collapsing into dust. Every assumption I had cherished of human weakness, of inevitability, of empire superiority, rotted in that instant. I remembered mocking their burritos, their reality shows, their yellow cartoon faces. Yet behind that mask of absurdity lay calculation sharper than any blade. They had wrapped themselves in ridicule, and I had swallowed it whole. The ship shuddered as if bowing to inevitability. My soldiers looked to me for orders, but I had none to give. The human stood at the center, serene, unyielding, the ghost of Earth that had been promised. He lifted his gaze, voice steady, words falling like verdicts. "You thought we were playing checkers. We were building a different board entirely." Yelf whispered prayers in his native tongue. Kor stared at the floor, weapon useless, courage gone. I felt something inside me fracture, a realization so vast it silenced thought. The Empire had miscalculated, and I had been the instrument of its humiliation. The human returned to the chair, reclining as though the performance were complete. 10 hours. That's how long it takes for a ghost to travel. You'll see the rest soon enough. The comms erupted with frantic messages from across the fleet. Ships disabled, systems collapsing, Earth's hidden guardians rising from shadow. I closed my eyes, hearing only the rhythm of his words, the certainty of his presence. For the first time in centuries, I prayed. Not to the Empire's gods, not to the architects of conquest, but to the planet I had mocked. I prayed to Earth, to its ghosts, to the terrible power of being underestimated. And when I opened my eyes, the human was watching me with a smile that carried no malice, only inevitability. "Ghosts always arrive late," he said softly.